We are going to be covering Seedstock marketing, successful Seedstock marketing at that. We're not just going to do mediocre today. We'll do successful. Yeah, so, with us today, we've got about an hour. We're going to kind of keep this a little informal, kind of a Q&A type format. The panel up here will go through and kind of give a background on their involvement in the Beefmaster breed and their business and their success with Seedstock marketing, and kind of give tips and tricks. But we also have a mic right here in the front that if you do have questions, you're welcome to come up and use the mic. I do ask that you come up, or we can bring the mic to you just so everybody can hear your question, and our video can hear your question also. So, and yes, please silence your cell phones. Good reminder. So, I guess we'll get started. First, right here, we have our panel. And I'll do a quick little introduction. I think most everybody knows these three gentlemen, and for some reason I was put on this panel too. Not sure why, but I'm here too. So first we have in the middle, Charlie Wood. He is your general manager and advertising manager for the Beefmaster Cowman and the Gulf Coast Cattleman. And we also have Mr. Clark Jones, and he's the owner of Jones Beefmasters in Savannah, Tennessee, and he has an extensive background in marketing. And at the end, we have Mr. Lorenzo Lassiter. He's the current president of ISA Beefmasters in San Angelo, Texas, and successfully manages one of the oldest and largest production sales in the Beefmaster breed. And then you have myself, Geraldine. I'm Geraldine Novak, and I do communications for the Beefmaster Association. So, like I said, we're just going to kind of go down the line, and we'll start off with Mr. Clark Jones.
Okay, Geraldine, thank you, and thank you for this opportunity to be here and talk with you today about something that's I'm very passionate about, and that's the Beefmaster business. This is my 32nd year with this association, and we've been blessed to be involved with so many of you and in this breed for a long time. To talk briefly about marketing and what I've done all my life. I've been in the automobile business for 47 years and retailed over 200,000 cars within that period of time. And like I said earlier, in the Beefmaster business, this is again my 32nd year. And next year, I think, Bruce, it's number 20 for us. I think we've been fortunate enough to market over $15 million worth of Beefmaster cattle in our time. So I don't know what else we need to do other than get along with it and tell you briefly what I believe that's important in marketing is understanding your targets and understanding what you want to do in this breed and what your goals are, and then being able to set out a plan to accomplish those goals. So many people that I've talked to, I guess when I start this year, this will be 21 years I've sat on this board, the association, and been honored to be president of it and work with so many of you and been president of Satellite and other things. And I talk to people many times and I ask them, I said, what do you want to do in the cattle business? And they say, well, we just want to sell some cattle. Well, my answer to them is we've got to go a little deeper than that. We've got to understand if we want to market to the commercial industry, if we want to raise high-end Seedstock cattle, and what the correlation between those two things are. So as we go along, I'll be glad to answer questions on what has made us successful and what is important to me in marketing Beefmaster cattle.
I appreciate y'all having me. My name's Charlie Wood. We publish the Beefmaster Cattleman magazine, which is y'all's breed magazine, and we also publish Gulf Coast Cattleman, mainly going to commercial cow-calf producers of all breeds. This is my 17th year. I started right out of college, so I've been doing this a while. So not only do we publish the magazines, but we also take a lot of photography. We do ring service for sales, which probably is where most of y'all see me. And the neat part about my job too is that not only do I get to interact with Beefmaster people, but kind of all breeds and get to see the whole spectrum of the industry. So I think Clark had a good point. A lot of times, advertising-wise, people ask me the most important thing, and the biggest thing for you guys is having a plan of action each year, and knowing a budget, kind of a place to go, things like that. So I think we kind of same thing. Let y'all ask the questions and kind of get on from there, and let Lorenzo head it up next.
Well, glad to see such a great group here. Thank you for taking time in the afternoon. I'm Lorenzo Lassiter. I'm from San Angelo. I've been with my family company, Issa Beefmasters, for 26 years now. I was telling somebody, though, I was visiting with my mom before I came, and I came to my first Beefmaster convention when I was 6 months old in 1968. It was here in San Antonio. That's why she was telling me the story. So this is obviously a part of my life, you know, in a very deep and meaningful way to me. So, you know, I love the cattle and I love the people that are around it. And I would say, in terms of marketing, that the cattle business, I think much more than a lot of other industries, is a relationship business. It's the old handshake deal is still the way it is, and the cattle thing, which I think makes it neat and makes it special. A little bit about what we do marketing wise. I sell about 200 bulls a year. We just had our 58th sale in San Angelo a couple of weeks ago. So we've been doing that a long time. I sell about 140 at auction in the fall and 60 private treaty in the spring. I sell 50 to 70 females a year, private treaty, bred females. And then semen and embryos. I have a particular interest, personal interest, I suppose, in international stuff. And so I try to do a lot of international marketing. So that's kind of our business model and who we sell to, and look forward to your questions.
And I guess I'm considered part of the panel also. So my focus as being the communications coordinator at Beefmaster Association is basically to help our members with their communication efforts, as well as communicate association news and industry news to the membership. We do produce publications, and we have different advertisements that we produce in-house. A lot of things that members don't realize are what advertising opportunities we offer to market your cattle through the association. You can not only market through the magazine with the Beefmaster Cowman, but we also offer types of email blast, social media posts through Facebook, Instagram, and we also offer advertisement design work and placing advertisements in our publications. Those are opportunities for you to market your animals to not only Beefmaster breeders, but also commercial cattlemen throughout the country. So we do offer that. We also like to work with members to educate them on good photos, and also we try to help members get quality photos through our field staff. If they are out there visiting at your ranch, we offer that resource that they can take photos of your cattle if you need that for advertisements as well. So those are things that we like to work with the membership on to help, as well as if there's a program or a resource that you need that we don't offer, we will help you find the resource and that person that can help you, through a marketing firm, advertising agency, things like that can help you. So with that, that's kind of a nutshell of what I do at the association. But I think the biggest thing, like they said, is you got to have a goal in mind and an audience know who you're marketing to so you can produce a good message for that audience. So that's the first step in successful seed stock marketing. And I think we kind of all agree on that. If you don't have a goal and you don't have a budget in mind, you kind of don't have an end plan, in sight. So with that, we're going to open it up for questions. You can ask us as a panel as a whole or individually. If you have a specific question for an individual panel member, you're welcome to do that. So the floor is yours. Like I said, if you can come up to the mic and to ask your question so everybody in the room can hear. So nobody be shy.
I'm not shy. This question is for Clark and Lorenzo. Since Beefmasters is a pretty unique organization, and one thing we have that the other breeds don't is our satellite systems, marketing group systems. And with the cost of putting these satellite cells on, and we're moving more and more into performance data instead of just the pretty. Of course, you have to have that as well.
Surely do.
What do you recommend that we do to help our satellites prosper more than what they are right now? Because I think in the future, and especially the next 4 or 5 years, it's very important that we grow our satellite systems and make them stronger.
You want to go first, or?
Sure, I can. So I think the satellite things is really something that makes us unique, and it gives, we're an association largely of small breeders, and that's not necessarily weakness. In fact, it can be a strength. And the satellite gives people that are new breeders or smaller breeders a place to not only meet with people from their region or their area, but a chance to market their cattle. And that could be the hardest thing. If you get, you invest, you go buy 10 cows, whatever, however you get started, then you're like, okay, now what? I got to sell something. And that gives people an outlet, not only to enjoy camaraderie and the other things that go along with it, but a place to market their cattle. So I think that the success of the satellites and the sales throughout the country, in other words, a rising tide lifts all boats, and so we want all the sales to do well, and then, that means the market is stronger for Beefmaster cattle. So I'm a big believer in that, and in terms of supporting it directly, it's a difficult thing to do. One of the programs that has come out of the advertising committee that I think is valuable is the co-op advertising program, where you can buy an ad in partnership with BBU, and basically that stretches BBU's advertising budget and also stretches your own. And there are 1,000 cattle publications in the country, so it's very hard to hit them all. Somebody always says, well, I'd like to see more BB ads in my neighborhood. Well, that's the way to do that, and is through that co-op plan. So those are the kinds of things, you kind of got to get a little creative. We all have limited budgets, and it's hard to hit all the venues, and so you got to get a little strategic about it sometimes.
Good. Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. I think that being a satellite president before and being involved in them for 30 years, I think the things that I see that the satellites need to work closer together to understand the amount of cattle they have to market. What we do is, and I work with all of the guys. I love Mike and Anthony and all the guys that do the satellite sales and others. And what ends up happening, and I've seen it time and time again, is we get down to 90 to 120 days before a sale, and they're out reaching for cattle. They're calling you and saying, "Have you got something you can put in here?" I think we're working. Jerry Thomas is our president in the Southeast, and I'm a member, as y'all know, of every satellite. I always have been. So what we're going to try to do and is to work with members. It's somewhat like we do every year. We work a year in advance at planning what we're going to be marketing the next year. And when I said that in my opening statement, it's very important to me that I think that none of us put enough time. I know those of us, like Lawrence is sitting there, they have a production cell, Mike and others, and I don't want to leave anybody out that does. But we're planning a year in advance for what we're doing, 18 months, 24 months in breeding decisions. So what I would like to see the satellites be able to do is bring our people together earlier and say, look, we're going to have 5 bred heifers for the sale at Sulphur Springs or wherever, Jerry, we're doing something, and be able to understand that and work with the management people earlier to try to understand and develop how many cattle and not let it be a 90-day decision. Because if you make an earlier decision that I'm going to market at the Houston Futurity or I'm going to be somewhere else earlier and prepare your cattle for what you're doing, then you're going to find, and that gives you an opportunity to work with Charlie and others to advertise those good cattle earlier and get them out there and then have them in a condition to when you photograph that cow, even though she may not be selling 90 days from now or 120 days from now, well, is she ready to be in that? Because that picture is the impression they get. When we get ready for our production sale, Justin gets our cattle are ready to go on our D-Day is video day or picture day, because that first impression that you make is a lasting impression. They see an animal that's not ready or something in an ad, they just discount it. You know what I mean? And then if you're ready, planning is the most important thing, in my opinion, in marketing. And as Lorenzo said, understanding relationships and long-term relationships and handshakes are important. But to answer Jerry, that's what I think satellites need to do more of, is get together earlier and plan what their cattle are going to be selling.
On an advertising budget.
You want me to go first? Let's go. The three things that I didn't outline that I use in marketing is the first thing is you work as hard to accumulate the best genetics and things you can do for your herd. Secondly, when you plan a sale, you prepare to do everything in the world you know how that can be done. Advertising and so forth is number 2. And number 3 is that dumb luck, I call it, that we have every time it seems like that just something happens and everything works good. So that's the one we can't monitor, right, Cindy? So what I do is you know, like I said, we're me and my partners, Stone Cybers, this will be number 20, I think, for us, that's, if I'm not mistaken. We sit down a year in advance and we look at what our historical goals are, what our averages would be, our realistic goals, and we plan each and every expense we have each year. We know what it is, and we take a percentage that we want to dedicate to advertising, and that's how we plan it. You know, and that number can be different for everybody, but that's where you work with somebody like Charlie that knows that, is a professional at what he does, or the other people that are in that business, excuse me, that do that, and then you realistically, you know, set a realistic goal with your people that are managing your sale or whatever, and that's the number you use. I mean, it can be, you know, if you think your cattle are going to do a certain number, then I usually figure somewhere around, we do, goodness, I need to lean on people. Where's Justin? Somewhere around 10 or 12%. Is that right, Justin? Okay. That's our number usually. It's what we use for our base number for advertising.
Yeah, for us, I guess it's just trial and error of a lot of years of doing it. My budget this year worked out to be $136 a bull for 132 bulls, about $18,000. And I try and be pretty conservative about it because, you know, we sell to 10 different states, and it's really hard to hit all those states. And then the big cattle publications are really expensive. So the first place, and I'll toot Charlie's horn a little bit, the easiest place if you're selling Beefmaster cattle is obviously the Beefmaster Cowman. In other words, those are lovers of the breed that are reading that magazine. So that's the first stop. But if you're trying to reach people in Florida or Nevada, it gets a little bit trickier. And you know, you could, sometimes I wonder if it works at all. You know, but you can't take the chance of not doing it. And honestly, sometimes I think what works the best for us is, you know, we send out a newsletter prior to the thing to, you know, our customer base, and you know, those are the folks that come to the sale. You know, we've got a lot of repeat customers. So it's a very imperfect, and you asked the question, and I know you've been through it many times yourself. It's very hard to figure out about it, and there's a lot of money involved. And, you know, the best you can do is put some number on it. You know, so for us, figure $136 a head seems to work. You know, could trim a couple thousand off that, meaning stop a publication or two, but it makes you nervous to do that. And so, depending on the type of the sale, of course, you can fine-tune that quite a bit. If it's a high-end female sale only to registered breeders, you know, you can really focus that in a little bit more. If you're a commercial bull sale and you're trying to reach people in a lot of different places, you kind of got to scatter it out a lot more. And then with new media, of course, that's changing rapidly too. So, you know, I'm talking about mostly print and those things. And anyway, so there's a ton of moving parts, and once a sale is established, you know, you just have to put a percentage on it of, you know, what you hope to gross, and kind of figure out, you know, you got to get to the net in the end. You got to make some money on it in the end.
And I would say too, that's the biggest thing, is once you get a number, make sure, people call me all the time and they say, well, what do I want to do? How do we want to do it? And the biggest thing with any advertising, whether it's print, social media, whatever, is consistency. And so what we can do is sit down with you with a number, whatever that number may be, and plan it out throughout the year. And that doesn't mean that can't change a little here or there throughout the year, but then you know from the very beginning what you're going to spend, kind of the timeline of everything, and we can kind of proceed from there. And like Lorenzo said too, you know, it's kind of hard to justify spending this here, spending this there, and if you're getting your money back. But it goes back kind of maybe to our luncheon too. The gentleman said something about perception. Advertising, a lot of times it's about perception, and as a breed too, like Lorenzo was saying, having the co-op ads. If people see Beefmaster ads in other non-specific breed publications, there's a perception out there that, wow, these guys, they must mean something. Look, there's the Angus ad, there's Beefmaster next to it. Advertising in general is a lot about perception, and so it's a hard thing to justify, but it's definitely it's something that's important and that needs to be done. So.
We got them fighting over it now.
I'd like for you to comment on the video sales. You know, a lot of us smaller breeders, we don't have the cattle like you do, and you have to have our own sale. But I see a lot more video selling. And could you maybe discuss about what you think the future of that is for bigger breeders, smaller breeders, or where we're going to go with that?
You go.
Sure. This year, for the first time, I did a video auction, and I've always been nervous to do it because a lot about a sale is the atmosphere. You know, you want to create an atmosphere and a mood and an energy, and if everybody's sitting at home in their underwear watching on the internet, it's hard to do that. So we both there were two pieces to it. We videoed them and then had the internet, the auction available on the internet. The video was very well received because all the people that came to the sale kind of did their homework in advance, pre-screened the bulls visually. So that was a big win, which I didn't expect. Well, not a single person bought on the internet, so that was a big loser. I'm not to say that that's the way, you know, that it's the way to go. It's very expensive for a sale to do it, depending on what you go. If you go with big time like Superior TV Auction, some of these, you're talking about a lot of dollars. So you got to be very serious about it and really think there's a demand. But there's another level of that, of let's say not just video auction, but internet auctions and things like that. I did this spring. I tried for the first time a spring genetics auction. It was basically kind of a silent auction format on the internet, and it was great. People really liked it. It was a lot of fun. It gave us access to some new people that weren't necessarily customers. So I think as media changes, there's going to be more of those kind of opportunities that are, one, less expensive, and two, just a little bit different, as people let go of the old adage that they want to go touch the animal before they bid on it and those kinds of things. I mean, you've seen a big shift just in the way a lot of the sales are run now, where the animals aren't necessarily coming through a ring. Well, the next step would be they don't necessarily have to come to the town that the sale's at, you know. And so, you know, we all have to kind of evolve with technology, even though it's a low-tech industry in many ways. So I think that application, you just got to figure out how you can afford to be involved with it. But I think that, you know, obviously that's going to be here to stay.
I agree. We've done 12, 13 sales in a row, I think. We use DV auctions, and we do our own video. Of course, logistics can have a lot to do with that. I laugh and say, those of y'all that don't know, it's 16 hours to Savannah, Tennessee, and you don't go by there, you go to Savannah, Tennessee. So it's a tough place, and we figured it out a long time ago that it was imperative to us. Of course, we're involved in a bull sale in Kansas now, which you don't pass through there very often either. So we used it this year there also, but I think it's, you know, from the standpoint, there's other ways to use. Geraldine is an expert at things like Facebook advertising, digital advertising on Facebook, YouTube ads, your web page that, you know, I think that people that, or I know Lorenzo does a wonderful job with his web page and other things that he does there, and we've worked incredibly hard on ours over the last 4 or 5 years to do those things. I think that, you know, you can take a video of an animal that you're sending to a satellite sale, Jerry, like you were talking about, and post that on Facebook or YouTube or on your personal website and drive people to that all the time. I know the guys that sell for me in the female sale for sure, we have all those animals up already on Facebook, on our website, and other places, and those guys can say that are talking to people from afar, they'll say go to the website and look at lot 12 or look at lot 1 or whatever it is, and you can go to my Facebook page and you can see that animal we're selling in Houston or wherever it might be. So I think video is you know, I was telling Lorenzo prior to the meeting about what I believe about digital. My other life, my real life that I've done to support my love, the cattle business is the car business, and we sell 40% of the cars to people that never come to the car dealership now. It's all digital. It's all done online now. And so we were having a conversation. I don't believe that the cattle industry is going there by any means, but it's certainly a viable part of your marketing plan is your digital and your video, because I think Chrissy just set me up. I'm not, Geraldine, I apologize, I'm just getting on Facebook, and she said, and I enjoy getting on there and looking at everybody's cattle across the country. You know, I just look at them and enjoy what they put on there and getting to see other people's cattle through that. So it is, you know, video and digital is a huge part of where we're going, whether it's just through friendships and associations and satellites and what we do. So yes, I couldn't agree more that it is.
And I agree too, it is. I think we do have to remember, and most people talk about social media, and it is a great tool, but it kind of goes back to Clark with the photo he said earlier. Be careful when you're videoing,
Absolutely.
when you're taking photography of your animals, what you're putting out there, because you hit that button, and next thing you know, everybody's like, oh, I've got 1,500 likes, and I've got 5,000 views, and sometimes it may not be the right video or photo that you want to be representing. So I would say be very mindful of what you put out through social media. When it comes to us at the magazine, if it's something, maybe a picture that's not going to work, we try to walk through it, see if there's something else we could do, get somebody else out there. With social media, it can be just a click of a button, and sometimes you can hurt yourself a lot faster than you can help. So just, I think that's always something to keep in the back of your mind.
Mark, do you have one?
You're not off the hook. I'm going to start with him.
Good.
I believe you have the largest production bull sale in the breed. Is that correct?
Probably so.
Okay. So tell us about this bull sale. I'm not promoting you. I'm promoting what you do. But you just don't raise a bunch of bulls, get them in shape, and throw them in the sale. I mean, you're selling a lot more than bulls. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, we'd hope to think we're selling a program, and that's why people come back generation to, over generations and over many years. So, it's a 3-year process to sale day, and people don't, you think about it as a 6-month process or a 1-year process, but it's a 3-year process. By the time you make a breeding decision, raise those calves, get them in shape to sell, get them to 18 months old, all those things. So you've got a lot of time and energy invested in those, and so a lot goes into the process, but people buy into the program. So I think people like consistency, so we strive to make the cattle more consistent. Each year I go down and look, we sell them descending order of quality, and I go down and look at the bulls at the bottom, and if they're looking like useful bulls and they're looking better every year, then I'm improving. In other words, I'm doing my job. So, we want to represent a program that people have faith in, that people, believe is honest and those kinds of things. And so, kind of all I can say is, I guess, just do the best job you can, and over a long period of time. My dad told me when I started out, he goes, a man only has about 40 calf crops in his life, and you really need to take every one of them seriously. And it's true. It's excruciatingly slow business, and but that's the product. That's game day. That's our Super Bowl.
Okay, I'm going to lead you a little bit further.
All right.
When you put these bulls in sale order, how do you determine that sale order?
So
I'll just cut to the chase. A performance test.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So everything we do is performance-oriented. So our catalog is 37 data points in the catalog. We do a grass phase of the test, a feed gain of the test, and trying to mimic a beef steer's life. And so the customers have the full suite of data, their pedigree, their EPDs, their personal data, their scan data, then those two gains that I mentioned. And so I hand select the order of the first 40 bulls, and using the data, but then those are the bulls that we represent is the quality enough to go into registered herds. So the herd bulls going into registered breeders like yourselves are on the front end of the sale. And the idea of the sale structure so that the price goes down throughout the sale. So if somebody's buying volume bulls on an average, they can start at a point above their average, end at a point below their average, and hit their number. But then I use a computer scoring system based on 9 different data points within the catalog to rank the rest of the bulls. And it's imperfect. People always come and say, why you got this bull here? You got it wrong. Everybody always like to tell you what you did wrong. But it gets them in roughly descending order of quality based on, things like calving ease and growth and weight per day of age and those kinds of things. So, they kind of looks like they make sense, I hope, when they're organized that way.
And not every bull calf that enters the program makes a sale.
No, not at all. I mean, obviously you want to sell as high a percentage as you can of your bulls, and honestly, breed-wide, that's one of our weaknesses, is we don't sell enough bulls. In other words, everybody needs to be able to sell more bulls, and that's market-related and also interest-related, I suppose. But, I hope to get to sale with 70–80% of the bulls raised in a given year. It doesn't always work out that way, but, to make it, work financially, that's kind of where we need to land.
Okay, for us small breeders, this coming to you, Clark. For us small breeders, it's hard to have the facilities and all the stuff he does. He has a large number of bulls, so he has the power to deal with people and feedlot, places to pasture the bulls, all the stuff that goes along with it. That's very difficult for us small breeders. But you're involved in something now in where I'm going is a bull co-op.
Right.
Performance test and sale.
That's right.
Would you talk about the advantages of that for us small breeders?
Well, I think that, yeah, Mark, that's a wonderful point. There's always strength in numbers, as you know, and I think that's what you're alluding to. And we were approached 3 years ago to get involved with our partners in Kansas to develop a performance-oriented bull sale. And there was, I guess, 5 of us, Mackie, I think, is that correct? Correct me, I think, to start with. And we start with somewhere in excess of 250 bulls to find that exact number. I'm not sure, 150, 160 bulls that met the performance criteria that we required. Things that I don't want to bore you with details, but the criteria is it was a terminal and maternal index, a minimum ribeye score, a minimum IMF score, a maximum amount of trim allowed on the cattle where they weren't too fat. Of course, structure, BBU staff evaluated each bull for structure, a minimum of passing BSE at 15 months, things that are important to the commercial industry, and we came together to do that, and I think there's strength in that, but in doing that, that wasn't the first time it's been tried, Mark, and we tried it in the Southeast, we've tried it in different places over the years, but having a good plan to do those things is what's important. And I think the people that have been successful for many, many years are those guys that have a good plan. and are able to reach out. The bull selling, the theory that build it and they will come doesn't work in the commercial bull industry. It takes many hours of calls. It takes that advertising budget that Cindy talked about earlier. When you're trying to start a bull sale, you can throw that thing out the window because you're going to see everywhere in the world that you think you need to advertise, and you'll end up spending the money because you're afraid you're going to miss something. And but that's what it takes. And then building relationships for those bull buyers time and time again is the key to it. And this was only our second annual sale that we had up there, and it was an incredible success. But there's a lot of work, and there's strength in doing, Mark, to answer your questions, there's a lot of other things that are successful, like BOF, which is very similar. Larry's sitting on the front row. They're very successful at doing a very similar thing with their co-opters, and that's what it takes. And I would encourage everybody that could to be involved in something like that if it's plausible for them.
I have to go all the way to the microphone. How are we doing as far as penetrating the commercial cattle market? And what should we be doing to further, get into that Brangus, get into the Brangus owners, things like that?
You got two guys that are passionate about that. Go ahead, Lorenzo.
Well, this is one of the big frustrations for me as again, Beef Master is very personal for me, is the breed doesn't get enough credit for how good it is. And, I'm sure you've all had the experience. You meet somebody on an airplane or whatever, and they say, what do you do? And they say, I raise beef masters. And they say, well, what are those? Yeah. And I want to slap them, and I want to say, this is the 7th largest breed in the United States. This is a big deal. And, we don't get enough name recognition, and we certainly don't get enough credit for how good a female, a cow, that the beef master is. And we've beat our heads against the wall for as long as I've been doing committee work around here, trying to figure out how to do a better job of that. And I think we've started to make strides, and it's like some pieces are starting to come together. And so the Beef Foundation generated some money, and we started doing some stuff with education and research, and we started, in my opinion, have started to get a little traction. And I'll give you 3 examples. I sat with Steve Carpenter at lunch, and he gave me a new one that I didn't even know about. But we got on a deal with the Noble Foundation. Well, that gets Beef Masters on the map for a large group of commercial breeders in kind of North Texas, Oklahoma area. And then there's the new project, Texas A&M, where they're going to have a beef master herd. Well, that's a really big deal in Texas. That's a nod that we didn't necessarily think we'd get. He told me today that Oklahoma State's thinking about starting a beef master herd. And then he went on to say that K-State's thinking about starting a beef master herd. Well, those little things, like building one upon another, means that the commercial guys and all of that are all of a sudden have to say, okay, now what's a beef master? Why are they talking about beef masters all of a sudden? And it took us 80 years to get here, but maybe now we're finally going to get the credit that's due. So I guess to answer your question, all we can do is keep on trying as best we can with what the funds we have available, the personnel we have available, to tell the good news of the beef master. And it's wonderful news that the commercial cattle industry in this country really needs to hear it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And we've talked about this for 30 years I've been here, and we do have many positive things going right now. I think, I don't have any exact numbers, but I think as a whole, the breed will market more commercial bulls this year than any year that I've been involved in 30 years, and been very successful everywhere we've been. So I think so, but I'm going to jump back to another hat that President Siddons gave me. Support this foundation. If you look back at history, and many of us love to look back at history, the Angus Foundation put them where they were. When I was a boy, the Hereford Association was 5 times bigger than the Angus Association. And now they're bigger than all of us together. So, and that's what put them there. The vision of Dick Spader and Johnny Crouch and those people that formed that foundation and formed CAB made that breed. And we can do the same thing because we've got a hell of a lot better product than they got. We just need to tell people about it. And this foundation can drive that thing, and I encourage everybody that's not involved to be involved at whatever level you can, to be part of it, because it will drive us where we need to go. And I think Lorenzo agrees with me.
Absolutely.
And people are noticing too. Like I say, I not only stay in the beef master world, but I go from Texas to Florida to Angus sales, Hereford sales, Charolais, Brahman, all of them. first 10, 12 years, you know, people know that I'm tied to the Beefmaster breed as well, but there's comments now. Oh, wow, I saw Lorenzo's bull sale did this. Wow, I saw these bulls were doing that. My neighbor's got a Beefmaster bull now. Before that wasn't happening as much, and I hear it all the time now. So I think we're doing a very good job of getting them more accepted in the commercial market, and I think you see it in these bull sales, and Lorenzo's right too. We need to be marketing more. That's how good the commercial market is. So I think it is definitely looking up.
One more. How do you know what a buyer really is looking for?
Ask him.
Take them at their word.
I mean, I think that's the biggest thing. I don't know about you guys, but I mean, that's with any business. Ask them and have a real conversation about it. And then when he tells you, listen to him. Don't just put it to the side. Say, oh, he don't know what he's talking about. If your customer's asking you for things, listen to them. That's what I would say.
We talking about a commercial bull customer, or we talking about a purebred breeder? I mean,
Anybody.
well, that you know, when I tell. I taught selling all my life. You get in the lead and you ask the questions, and then listen for the answer. That's what you do. You don't let your customer dominate the lead. You tell, you know, he may be coming to buy. You know, he's starting out. He wants to buy a couple of $2,000 heifers to start his herd. You know, well, you don't walk him to one that I think is going to bring $25,000 next week and let him get disappointed because he can't buy her. That's why you ask questions to determine. That's not the cow business. That's selling. You know what I mean? That's what I do for a living. But you know, asking and understanding and sitting down. And you know, I've had a lot of new members. I know people that started in our breed. I like to sit down at the kitchen table and sit down and say, well, like I said earlier, what do you want to do? What do you want to get from these cattle? Is it a passion that you want to own the cattle? Or do you want to sell commercial bulls to your neighbors, or you want to follow the seed stock path and try to get to the top of that? So I think, and be honest with what their expectations are, and then they don't get disappointed in the long run. You know, that's important, is to understand what your friend, your customer, or whoever it is, what they want. And we all, I was talking to some friends from the Carolinas earlier today, and they said, well, we started out and we bought 20 or 30 cows, and they're not here anymore because that's not really what we wanted to do, but we didn't know any difference, you know. And I said, well, shoot, I made the same mistake myself, you know, when I started. So it's just part of it. And you know, I think having conversations with your friends that you trust and people you're in satellites with, you know, sit down and talk, you know, and try to understand what you want to do.
I said in the beginning that I really feel like it's a relationship business, and my dad taught me this. I travel real hard in the summer leading up to the bull sale. I went to 8 states this year, and I visit customers, visit ranches, and those relationships going beyond just the business transaction of selling a bull. You know, every rancher loves to show off his cows, and so you go tour with them, you spend some time with them, but that's when they tell you, you know, this is something I like, or this is something I don't like, or whatever it is. You know, you can get a little better feedback from that. And I'm not saying everybody can do that, but the relationship, as they correctly said, just asking the question sometimes, you know, what's important to you is really meaningful. And it's funny that this came up. I had the idea after this sale to do a survey of everybody that came to the sale. And so I've been working on these questions. I'm going to send it out Monday, in fact, of things like, what did you think about the hotel? What do you think about the meals? You know, stuff. How was the delivery? Just to get a feel for it, because sometimes it's such a frenzy you don't really know, and some of the stuff you don't really see, you know, the behind the scenes stuff. So, you know, I want to ask them, you know, what they like, what their suggestions are, and, you know, it'd be interesting to see what they say.
Okay.
I live in an area of southwest Louisiana where we don't have a strong Beefmaster market. And the commercial cowman tells me that they've had bad experiences in the past with Beefmaster bulls due to long sheaths. So can you give me some hints what to do? What marketing tools should I be using?
Well, you know, I think it's you probably it would be good if you could let them look at the newer Beefmaster bulls. You know, we, through the classification program and other things back in there, and that was, Lorenzo helped me, that was more old BBU type bulls that had, your bulls I've seen since you've been here been clean. You know, but we've made so much improvement. I think the statement that A&M made, Colin helped me with this, they said in the last 15 years there's no other breed made as much improvement in their cattle as we have. I think that when you get stereotyped, and that was basically what I was talking about earlier about a bad picture. You know, they've still got in their mind that the Beefmasters are big old tall slab-sided animals with sheaths dragging through the grass, okay? So I think that getting those people to you know, I think that there's things we can do. We've had several field days at our place in the Southeast. We fight the same things in Tennessee as you see in Louisiana and Mississippi and the Carolinas and places. I mean, we've got to show them our new product, and we got to show them that these cattle will work in any type situation. And that's just making them aware of what we do. I think, like Louisiana, I think they've been doing a co-op program forever and showing some of the better cattle. But that's just, it's work in process, like we said, and we've got to make them aware of how good our cattle are today as opposed to 35, 40 years ago when we had the pendulous sheaths and the sheath problems and things, because I still hear that at the sale barn and stuff. There'll be an old sorry calf come through there and he ain't got any Beefmaster in him, and they'll say, well, they sold a couple of old Beefmaster calves this week at the sale. Well, no, they weren't, you know. So that's something that we've got to continue to, and that's why we advertise in with the co-op programs in the Gulf Coast and other magazines, and to try to get that word out there that our cattle are much better than they were.
So I share your frustration, and I mean, Southeast Louisiana, or was Southwest, Southeast, right? Ought to be a slam dunk for Beefmasters, right? I mean, there ought to be no other kind of cattle in that neighborhood than Beefmasters. And so, you know, that kind of continuing what I was talking about earlier about slapping the person on the plane, you want to, you know, you got to just show them, I guess. But, you know, I tell people a lot, I said, these are not your daddy's Beefmasters. You know, they'll say, well, I've tried them before, didn't like them, or my dad tried them, he didn't like them. And, you know, we were guilty, we as an association were guilty of selling some pretty sorry cattle through the 80s. You know, when the thing grew fast, people were selling everything they could. And, you know, that reputation, he described it perfectly, of a slab-sided, no-muscled, you know, poorly sheathed animal, that's what people have in mind. Well, the important thing is to show them. And I don't know how many times people have seen my cattle and go, are these Red Angus? And, you know, because they have changed a lot over time. And, you know, again, we talked about how slow it is, but in a few generations, like muscling, for example, is a very easy thing to fix with genetics very quickly. So, you know, I would say in your neighborhood, with the people that are around you, the satellite in Louisiana, focus on that and focus on quality. At the satellite sales, it's really important that the cattle be, and Clark touched on this earlier, about starting early, but make them good. You don't want somebody that's an outsider to come in and see just a bunch of stuff that people dumped there because they needed to sell some stuff. Make them good, because, you know, marketing is putting your best foot forward every chance you get. And so, you know, and all the things we're talking about, like digital marketing, all that, post pictures of clean, well-muscled cattle, you know, and say, this is the Beefmasters that I'm raising, and they're perfect for what you want to do.
They talked about show them. A lot of nowadays with digital advertising, a good, easy, inexpensive way to show people is to create a Facebook page for your ranch, an Instagram account for your ranch, and post good pictures, as well as what y'all talked about is it's relationships. Not only do they want to see good cattle, but they want to build a relationship with you. And Facebook and Instagram is social, and people nowadays, sadly, are social behind their phones. But it is a good way to build a relationship with somebody that might not live next to you. You know, they're in another state. Build a relationship with them. show good photos, and not only show them photos of the cattle, but show them, your daily lives. Get them kind of connected to you so they feel like they are comfortable with you and they can ask questions, and that they are willing to, maybe come and see the cattle in person. Because that's their first introduction is through the website and social media, and then you build that relationship, and then they can come out to your ranch and you can actually show them in person also. So that's my input on the digital side. It's a cheap, easy way to get that show them out there, but we also want to show quality photos, and not just, make sure that their cattle are clean, well kept, and good quality photos are, like he said, can bite you if you post a bad photo. So it does more harm than good posting a bad photo. So I'll just leave it at that. So
what does a boost do?
A boost. So a Facebook page, a boost is basically Facebook's way of making more money, and you basically can boost a post on your Facebook page by reaching a higher audience. It puts you out there more by paying more money, is essentially. Who does it go to? You can control the audience based off of when you, so when you make a post, at the bottom right, there's a blue button that says Boost Post. And then it'll take you to a page where it will ask you, what audience you want to target. And you can tell it, I want to target this age group in this state, or I want to target people that like my page and people that are friends with them, and so on and so forth. So you can either have a really broad audience or a really narrow audience, depending on what your goal is. Like Lorenzo talked about, you need to, is it a seed stock sale? That, high-end female sale that's going to be a narrow audience, Beefmaster specific breeders, or is it a commercial, bull buyer audience where you need to reach 10 different states, and they, the age range varies. So, and you can spend as much money or as little money as you can. You can tell it however many days you want to run the ad. Now, keep in mind that Facebook algorithm works into this. Photos that have a lot of text do not market well on their Facebook algorithm. Photos that are just basically photos do well. So you don't want to put an ad that has a lot of tiny little text and because you're not going to get your bang for your buck, basically. You're going to pay money, but not many people are going to see it. So does that answer your question? It's basically Facebook's way of taking over the world. So, and really the algorithm now is if you don't boost a post, nobody really sees it. Yeah. So that's how it works. Money talks. So.
Yeah, and you can buy Google search in your zip code, and anybody that types in bull, your ad will come up first. That's how when you Google something and you see this ad coming up on the right side from whoever it might be, that's paid for through Google. I mean, there's so many things digitally going on, but I still contend that we stay with if we're marketing in the seed stock area, we need to stay with the publications that work for us.
Any more questions? Don't be scared.
Bound to be one more. There it is.
All right.
You had one too, didn't you? You're next.
This is just coming from like a viewer. A lot of these satellite cells, a lot of them have low-end, not quality, but low-end like dollar averages and stuff. But like coming from someone that has to drive 20 hours to get there, there's no videos, there's no pictures, there's not a lot, the catalogs are a lot basic on some of the ones that have just smaller budgets. So is BBU do anything to assist some of the ones that don't, like, because your cell, you guys do really well, you have videos, you have information, it's all out there. I'm more likely to drive to one of y'all's cells that has all that information in front of you when these satellite cells don't necessarily have any of that. So is BBU doing anything to assist these guys to kind of up the playing field a little bit to get it out to more people? And is there like guidelines for them to meet or whatnot?
There aren't really guidelines. That's up to each satellite, whoever's managing the sale, and the sales, the sales managers involved. One of the things that BBU has really tried for a long time to do, and I heard it in a couple of questions here, which is kind of music to my ears, is getting more performance data in the sales. And would you hear more sales talking about having performance thresholds to get in the sale? They need scan data. They need a certain level of performance for EPDs or whatever they are. And that content in the catalog is really critical. In other words, the days of just throwing out a pedigree and saying, here she is, I think are long past. There's the buyer is more discerning than that. EPDs are really becoming important in people's herds. And as you all know, if you can buy a low EPD animal, and it'll affect your herd for a long time. And so there's a lot more emphasis from the buyer's perspective on that. So that content is pretty easy to include. In other words, it's just, it doesn't require a whole lot to do it. Some of the other stuff is just a function of budget. But I think the first thing they can do is really focus on quality and get all the content that's available in there. In other words, make sure people are taking weaning weights and including that information and just the basic content. I think any sale can manage, tighten up where that's concerned.
And I agree with you too on the videos, but you got to remember you're talking logistics for you. Think about the logistics as well for a satellite cell with 30 different consigners, okay? So we're like at Lorenzo's, if Wade Fisher with Ideal need to do videos, he goes to Lorenzo's and he does all 140 at one time. Or if me, like taking photography, I go to one place, do it at one time. A consignment sale is a different animal because you've got so many different moving parts, so many different consigners. It's really, really hard outside of telling each consigner to take their own videos, their own pictures, which doesn't work. It's a really hard thing to do. So I agree. I think that it would be good, but you just kind of have to look at it from that angle too. It's not an easy thing to do. It's a lot easier to do when all the animals are in one place.
Yeah, I was just trying to make everybody successful.
Sure.
We all want to be successful.
Yeah, I agree, and it's really a good question, and it's something we've all. Jerry was talking about. He leads his satellite. Jerry leads his. I mean, it's really a hard thing. Satellite marketing is really tough. Now, BBU is doing some things like they're posting all the catalogs are under information. They're doing that kind of stuff. But if again, picking where you want to market, like I said, and planning, where you want to go. I mean, it was probably 10 years before I had a production sale, so. It's really a tough thing, and we all need to support it the best we can. And I think I couldn't agree more. I think we're seeing a huge move toward performance and evaluating the cattle through performance. And I think getting everything done there from birth weight all the way through your 12-month evaluation on your cattle is very important. And then I also believe that conditioning and presentation in those sales. I always thought if I went, even before we were so performance oriented, I wanted to have the best animal there. Presented right, the setup right. There's nothing shinier in a production and then in a consignment sale and a pretty 3-in-1. A young cow with a beautiful calf and bred back and ready to go, and there's not a better value. But we don't see them anymore much, in production sales or anything. Everybody wants to bring and I'm not fussing at people on consignments, but they want to bring a 13-month-old open heifer, that maybe they didn't like as well. Well, my rule of thumb in a consignment sale, if I didn't want her myself, why would anybody else want her? Bring something that you'd want yourself. And I've always felt like I was successful when I did. That's a key to it too. Bring something that you'd want to buy yourself, and it's always helped me.
Sir?
Hello, just a question. I see that there's a huge difference between the price of the animals in the satellite sales compared to the private sales, sometimes it's double, triple. And sometimes the difference in quality of the animals is not double or triple, so it has to do a lot with what we say presentation, displaying the animal, and marketing. So the question is, Charlie, what will be the best strategy, what will be the budget more or less for a satellite, and to try to really improve those prices? And let's say if you're comparing an animal that is very similar, if you can see a big difference, so what is your recommendation for a satellite to improve the prices?
Well, I don't know. I can't per se. His question was, I guess, what can the satellites do to kind of bring the prices up to maybe where the production sale levels are? I mean, like Clark says, it all goes back to presentation and things like that too. But I would say on your own level too, if you've got something, let's say you're going to consign a couple lots to a consignment sale, a lot of people just rely on the satellite or whatever that sale is to do the advertising. You know, maybe you do a little bit on your own as well through magazine, Facebook, you know, what other avenues. You get some good pictures of those animals on your own, and maybe you advertise as well on your own to make that specific animal stand out. And that doesn't mean you have to run a page 4 color ad on her. That maybe means you'd get some
That'd be good though, Charlie.
That would be good. But what I try to tell people all the time is they get scared off. They say, oh, well, I can't afford this, I can't afford that. Well, we can always figure it out. But that way, it makes you stand out a little bit more. And so I think that's a good way to look at it too, is yes, you want to rely, you want to go in with the satellites, you all want to do things together, and that's good. But also too, you need to market on your own because ultimately it comes down to those two animals are yours. So if there's anything else you can do as well, and that ultimately helps the satellite too. Anytime you see, I mean, there's a few satellites that do monthly advertisements in the Cowman, and they may put it's not a full page ad. It may not be a 4-color ad. It may be a black and white ad, but anything you can do on your own as well not only helps your animals, but it will help the satellite. Imagine if South Texas had a sale and they had their normal sale ads, and then sprinkled throughout different places on Facebook and magazines and stuff, there was also 4, 5, 6 different consigners that had ads also. That's not only helping you, but it's helping the satellite as a whole too. So I would say think about things like that as well, maybe just to make you stand apart a little bit.
And I think, again, being truthful with yourself is important. If that animal is an animal that you would want and want to buy yourself, and you prepare this bull, or I'm talking about either way, female or, and we're usually talking about females when we're talking about consignment sales, and you prepare her and she looks like, dang it, I hate I'm selling her, then most of the times you're going to be pretty successful. I believe that. Well, be truthful with yourself, and that's the advice I have that I try to give pretty often. So,
Larry Jeffson.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. I didn't originate this, but I saw a guy last year that went out and got he got good pictures, and then he hired somebody to make him a flyer that would also work on digital, and he had that thing all over Facebook, but then he sent it to Geraldine, and they did a e-blast with it a couple times, and he was in a consignment set. But I watched this, and I watched what he did. Now, they were good cattle, and they're right. Most people send something to a consignment sale that they don't want to keep. If you're doing that, don't expect to be successful. Don't expect Anthony or Mike Green to be able to make you millions of dollars when you're sending crap that you don't want.
I'm glad he said that. Yeah.
But anyway, this guy did that, and then he did the e-blast, and I mean, he doubled what the average was for his heifers. So Larimore sitting there watching that, and I thought, So I always sell all my fall heifers, that way I know I'm selling my best. And I had the same person build me one, had Geraldine do e-blast, and sold 2 12-month-old heifers that were fat for $67.50 each. Double what I normally do. But it was the power of advertisement, the power of having the cattle ready, and the power of having good pictures, and then letting these guys do what it took to make it work. And my sales manager, he's a great guy, but he just got to sit there and watch. He still got his 15%, that's okay. But I mean, I had to do it. And that's really what you got to do.
Come on up here, Greenie.
All right, I get to ask y'all a question this year. We lose a lot of breeders because they're unable to sell their bulls. And let's say we got a breeder that's producing 25 bulls plus a year that are worthy of being breeding bulls, but he can't get into the closed sales. He can't put enough of them in consignment sales, and he may be in a geographical area where he's unable to sell that many bulls. So he can't pay his expenses because he can't sell those bulls. What would be your advice or recommendation to those breeders that are producing that many good bulls and have nowhere to go with them?
I was thinking about the answer to your question, and there's two ways to answer it, but one of them is, in my opinion, consignment bull sales don't work on a commercial level. So a commercial buyer wants the bulls to be uniform, and if the bulls all showed up on Friday to sell on Saturday, they're not going to be uniform. And typically there's not enough of them for a big guy to come and buy because they don't want to make the sale. So what we really need, and Clark touched on this earlier, is in common performance test. In other words, consignment performance test, basically. So rather than just having a spring bull sale where everybody shows up on Thursday, everybody brings their bulls at weaning and they're together for a year and you develop those bulls, and so that process allows a lot of the things to happen, and Beef on Forage is a great example of that. In other words, there's 30 or 40 people represented in that sale, but the bulls look uniform because they've been together, they've been handled the same, they've been fed the same, they've been tested the same. So that's the way you get the big guys to come to the sale. They're not going to come to, if there's 30 or 40 bulls, they've been there before and they're not going to do that. So if you're talking about selling bulls, it's really, we really need more performance tests and sales, and it's not limited to bigger people. Like our own deal, I represent, 3 to several cooperators. In other words, it takes a village every time to put these bulls together and to do the work. But the longer they're together, the better your results will be, the better your chances are of getting the blue chip type commercial customers.
We've got to figure out a way to do more. Where is it? I think South Texas has just started something they're doing, putting bulls together. But that's what we need to do. That's where the success is. That's what's proven to me. We've struggled selling commercial bulls all our life in the Southeast, and we were fortunate enough to get involved in something that's cured our problem. So I agree, Mike, that we've got to do something to put them together, find a way to market them, because I don't know a way that a guy's got 25 bulls unless he has some type of connection to some of the big players in the world to sell them like that. And that's one question I do not have an answer for.
I said it earlier, it plagues us, right? There too many people have that experience is that they can sell the females, and it's a little bit who we are culturally. In other words, a big percentage of our people, they just focus on the females. And so we're guilty of that curl. Like I'm the opposite, right? All I think about is bulls. Cow's just a factory to me. What I want to do is raise bulls, but your 25 guy can participate somewhere. He can get together with 4 other 25 guys and they've got 100 bulls to sell together. But again, back to my thing, if they've got to be managed well. The commercial guys are much more discerning. People don't think about it this way, but they're much more difficult customers than a registered person. Typically, they know a lot more, and I don't mean that as an insult, but they're very serious. In other words, for a lot of us, this is not our main how we make our living. Those guys, it is. So they're very discerning, very serious, and it doesn't take them long to look at a horseshoe. In other words, they can figure out pretty quick whether a sale is for them or not. So you can learn from all the other sales that are successful because they all do. They all patterned in some level or another after, in the same thing. And it's not rocket science. I mean, you could write it down on a big cheat tablet, 1 page. These are the steps you go through to get a set of bulls ready to sell. So I would just encourage I was glad that these guys started one in Kansas because our footprint is too small. In other words, we can't just be a Texas organization or a Texas, Louisiana. We need to expand. We need success. I hated it when we lost, having a bull sale in the West, in Nevada. We should be able to sell zillions of bulls out there. And, so there's a market for these bulls, and as this tide comes up, as our reputation improves, as our fortunes improve, the demand for bulls is going to continue to go up. And it doesn't take much of a new move of the needle. A 1% change in our market share, and we could sell all the bulls. We wouldn't have enough bulls to go around. So I think we just need to keep doing a good job with the cattle, making them better, making making them fit what the industry's asking for, and they're very clear about what they're asking for, and present them well. And that's how that commercial section, you can, of your 25 guy, he can sell 4 or 5 off the top, right? It's the other 20 that he needs to deal with. Well, there's people that want to buy those bulls. You just got to figure out how to get the two together.
Billy.
I just want to tell y'all, this is more of a reinforcement of what Lorenzo just said. President of Live Oak, and I watched our Live Oak, we're established bull sale, one of the longest satellite sales going, and it's pretty well known in the industry and amongst BBU. We see the difficulties coming from not having bulls coming more uniform. So in the future, we started a bull program, and we had some mistakes in the first part of the years we did this, but we found the location, the right kind of feed programs, right farm development programs to get these bulls developed, and it's been very successful this year. And we started for next year. It's not going to be mandatory. That's a terrible word in beef master industry.
Yes, sir, it is.
But anyway, let's put it this way: if we're expecting over 200 bulls, and our program started. So if you want to have nominated bull at a Live Oak in 2021 sale, it's a good idea you get nominated in there. And when the reason for this is just like Lorenzo said a while ago, was uniformity. All these bulls have been there for a year together. They're competition amongst themselves, so you're comparing apples to apples. It's not to eliminate anybody, but it's to bring the best set of bulls we can with the uniform quality to our consumers. Now, we're limited for the number of bulls we can sell for our area. Unfortunately, our wildlife programs with their exemptions and ranchers not putting cows back when they can use a wildlife exemption has hurt the number of cattle we can put in South Texas. But as we grow back, and I think our quality and our improvements in our sales will be, I do believe our numbers of bulls we can market as a group like that will improve. So I just want to reestablish uniformity, and working together and partnerships can be an effective thing for the feedlot industry. Amen.
All right, we're going to wrap up our discussion. We could probably talk about this into the night, but we have a party. So, the gentleman up here will, be welcome to questions after the discussion. So feel free, if you didn't get your question answered, to visit with them. But thank you for attending. And our next event is going to be at 5:30 down on the second floor where we had lunch. So be sure to visit the trade show. It's probably closing up pretty soon. So make one last stop there, visit those trade show vendors, and we'll see you down there at 5:30. Thank you.